We spend so much of our time trying to look like we have it all figured out. We nod in meetings, we offer polite smiles to acquaintances, and we move through our days with a practiced rhythm that suggests everything is exactly where it needs to be. But tonight, I want to talk about what happens when the rhythm breaks. I want to talk about that heavy, quiet feeling in your chest when the person you used to be no longer fits the life you are living. It is a strange, hollow sort of ache, a realization that the map you were using for your life doesn't show the terrain you're currently walking on. Maybe you woke up this morning and felt that familiar, dull resistance to the day. It's not necessarily a sharp, stabbing pain, but a pervasive, quiet weight. It's the feeling of carrying a bag that seems to get heavier with every mile, even though you haven't added anything new to it. You look around, and it seems like everyone else is moving with a lightness you can't quite grasp. They are laughing at the right moments, meeting their deadlines, and navigating their calendars with ease, while you feel as though you are moving through water. It is a lonely experience, isn't it? To be surrounded by people, yet feel like you are speaking a language only you understand. We often try to hide this. We edit our lives, showing only the polished, capable pieces while tucking the fragmented, tired parts into the corners of our private spaces. We fear that if we let anyone see the weight we are carrying, they might judge us, or worse, pull away. And so, we keep the smile pinned on. We keep the posture upright. But the body remembers what the mind tries to dismiss. Your shoulders might feel tense. Your jaw might be perpetually tight. Your sleep might be thin and restless. These are the silent, physical reminders that you are working overtime just to maintain your footing. I want you to know that there is nothing inherently wrong with this state. You aren't broken, and you aren't lagging behind in some invisible race. You are simply in the middle of a transition, somewhere between who you were and who you are still becoming. When you undergo a significant change, whether it's a shift in your work, your relationships, or even just a fundamental change in how you view yourself, it is a taxing process. It requires an immense amount of inner reconfiguration. If your heart is currently navigating the aftermath of a change you didn't ask for, or if you are simply finding that life feels a little sharper, a little more demanding, and a lot more tiring than it used to, please stop trying to rush through it. The pressure to get back to normal is perhaps the heaviest weight of all. But there is no normal to return to. There is only the current moment, and you are allowed to be exactly where you are. It is okay to be tired. It is okay to be uncertain. It is okay to admit that the person you were 6 months ago feels like a distant relative you barely recognize. You are in the process of building a new version of yourself, and that kind of construction is never clean or effortless. It comes with dust, with noise, and with long periods of quiet struggle. If you are standing there right now, feeling like you are holding up the sky on your own, just know this: you don't have to be strong all the time. You don't have to have a plan for tomorrow or even for the next hour. Sometimes, the most courageous thing you can do is to admit that things are difficult, to set down that heavy bag for a moment, and to breathe without judgment. You are navigating the complexities of your own existence, and that is a profound task. You are not failing. You are unfolding. Give yourself permission to be exactly as you are tonight, with all your weariness and all your questions. It is a brave thing to keep showing up when your heart is still learning how to beat at this new pace. You are doing enough. And for right now, that truly is enough. We are often told that life moves in a logical, upward progression. From the time we are young, we are conditioned to believe in a narrative of steady achievement. We finish one chapter and we start the next. We solve a problem and we move on to a bigger, better one. We are taught to view life as a series of rungs on a ladder, where every action is meant to lift us higher than where we stood the day before. But that is rarely how it actually feels, is it? Most of us find ourselves circling back to the same anxieties, the same questions, and the same old patterns, wondering why we haven't arrived yet. It can be deeply exhausting to look at your life and think you should be further along than you are. The illusion of the straight line creates a silent, constant pressure. It tells us that if we aren't constantly moving forward, we are somehow stagnating or failing. But human experience is far more cyclical than that. We don't just grow in one direction. We grow in layers. Sometimes we have to revisit old ground to understand it differently. You might find yourself dealing with an insecurity or a doubt that you thought you had put to rest years ago. And that discovery can feel like a setback. You might ask, why am I still dealing with this? Didn't I learn this lesson already? But there is a profound honesty in admitting that you are still working through things you thought you had left behind. That isn't a sign that you've regressed. It's a sign that you've deepened. We often encounter the same challenges from new perspectives as we age, and what once felt like a barrier is now something you have the capacity to address with more maturity, more patience, and more kindness. Growth is not a clean, upward arc. It is a messy, winding path that doubles back on itself. It is a slow, rhythmic movement, a pulse of expansion and contraction. Some days, you will feel as though you are leaping forward, full of clarity and energy. Other days, you will feel as though you are standing perfectly still, or perhaps even drifting backward. When those slower days come, the temptation to judge yourself is intense. We have a habit of attaching a moral value to our progress, labeling the forward motion as good and the rest as bad. But your worth is not tied to your velocity. If you feel like you are circling the same issues, try to reframe that movement. You aren't walking in a circle. You are walking up a spiral. You are passing the same points again, but from a higher elevation. You are seeing the same truths, but with more context and more wisdom. That step back that feels so frustrating, it is not a failure. It is a necessary part of the landscape. It is the time you take to catch your breath to integrate what you have learned, and to prepare for the next stretch of the journey. So, let go of the need for a linear life. Give yourself permission to be exactly where you are today, even if it feels like a place you've been before. There is no destination you are supposed to be rushing toward. There is only this moment, this repetition, and the grace to be patient with your own evolution. The path is not meant to be traveled quickly, and it is certainly not meant to be walked without pause. Your journey is uniquely yours, and the detours, the stops, and the circular movements are all, in their own way, exactly where you need to be. Think about the sheer amount of energy you spend just trying to hold things together behind the scenes. We live in a world that tends to measure life by the visible markers, the completed projects, the stable routines, the moments where everything appears perfectly in place. But the reality is that the most significant work you do is entirely invisible to the rest of the world. It is the silent, internal labor that consumes so much of your spirit, day in and day out. Think about the energy it takes to be kind when you are feeling deeply depleted. Think about the quiet strength required to be productive when your mind is heavy with distraction, or the resilience it takes to be present in a conversation when a significant part of your heart is still processing a loss, a change, or a lingering sense of uncertainty. You are doing so much more than anyone else can see. There is a weight to carrying these hidden struggles, a kind of invisible work that goes unrecognized because it doesn't leave a tangible mark on your schedule or your surroundings. We often focus on the grand gestures or the sudden breakthroughs, but healing and growth rarely happen in explosions of light. Most of the real, enduring work happens in the small, unremarkable moments that no one else witnesses. It is in the decision to get out of bed on a morning when everything feels gray. It is the conscious choice to speak to yourself with a little more patience instead of the usual sharp self-criticism. It is the simple, brave act of allowing yourself to stop for a moment, to close your eyes, and to take a full, steadying breath when the pressure starts to mount. That effort is not nothing. That effort is everything. It is the foundation upon which your entire life is being rebuilt. People might see you continuing your routine, and they might assume that you are fine, or that you have managed to move on quickly. They don't see the mental drafting table where you are constantly reevaluating your needs and setting new boundaries. They don't see the internal negotiations you have with your own fears, or the gentle encouragement you provide to yourself when no one else is around to offer it. Please, take a moment to acknowledge the depth of your own endurance. Even on the days when it feels like you aren't accomplishing anything, or when you feel as though you are barely treading water, you are actually doing the heavy lifting of self-preservation. You are building the capacity to handle what comes next. You are learning the boundaries of your own strength and discovering the unique ways in which you can offer yourself comfort. If you feel like you are exhausted, it is because you have been working hard, even if that work has been entirely internal. You don't need a witness to validate your growth. You don't need a public success to prove that you are moving forward. The progress you are making in the quiet of your own mind is real, and it is permanent. Every time you choose to be kind to yourself, every time you choose to acknowledge your own limits rather than pushing past them into burnout, you are claiming a victory that is yours alone. Your effort is not wasted. It is being stored, integrated, and transformed into the person you are steadily becoming. Give yourself credit for the mountain you are climbing, especially on the days when the path is shrouded in fog and you can't see how far you've come. You are doing the work, and that, in and of itself, is a profound and beautiful act of courage. There are moments, quiet and unexpected, when you are suddenly caught in the slipstream of who you used to be. Perhaps you hear a song, walk down a familiar street, or catch a glimpse of yourself in a window. And for a fleeting second, the past feels more real than the present. You are haunted by the echoes of that person, the one who felt more carefree, perhaps more certain of the path ahead, or simply less burdened by the weight of what has happened since. It is incredibly easy to look back at that version of yourself with a painful sense of longing, wishing you could return to a state of simpler understanding, a time before the edges of your life were softened or sharpened by change. We often treat our history like a room we've been locked out of, pressing our hands against the glass, desperate to retrieve the ease or the hope we think we left behind. But as Carl Jung once observed, who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes. We spend so much of our energy looking outside ourselves, comparing our current, messy reality to the perceived perfection of our past or the lives of others. And in doing so, we stay in a state of dreaming about what used to be. Waking up to your own reality is a more challenging, yet deeply healing process. It means accepting that the past is a story that has already been written. And while it shaped the texture of who you are, it cannot be your primary residence. You cannot go back to edit the chapters you've already lived, no matter how much you wish you could rewrite the endings or soften the middle. You are the only one holding the pen for what comes next, and that power is both terrifying and liberating. The goal isn't to try to become that person you were before the hurt or the change occurred. That person no longer exists, and trying to return to them is like trying to fit into a coat that no longer keeps you warm. The goal is to understand who you are now, in this exact moment, with all your current complexities, fears, and newfound wisdom. When the past feels heavy, try to view it not as a place to return to, but as a foundation you are building upon. You are carrying the sum total of every experience you've ever had, and while some of those memories carry a sting, they also carry the evidence of your survival. You have endured. You have navigated. You have evolved. The person you were was a necessary precursor, a version of you that paved the way for the person who is currently sitting here, reading these words and contemplating a way forward. Instead of wishing for the return of your past self, try to offer that version of you some compassion. They were doing the best they could with the information and the tools they had at the time. Thank them for getting you to this point, and then gently release the expectation that you must keep feeling or acting in the ways they did. You are allowed to be different now. You are allowed to have changed your mind, changed your pace, and changed your needs. The presence of the past is only a problem if you let it block your view of the present. When the memories come, let them be like guests. Acknowledge them, notice the lessons they leave behind, and then allow them to drift back out into the past so you can be fully, authentically present for the only life you have, the one happening right now. You are not losing yourself by moving forward. You are finally beginning to see who you are meant to be. We live in a world that is obsessed with fixing things as quickly as possible. We treat pain, confusion, and sadness like errors in our code that need to be debugged immediately. When we feel that familiar prick of heartache or the heavy blanket of uncertainty, our first instinct is to run, to scroll through a screen, to overschedule our days, or to reach for anything that might offer a quick hit of distraction. We are conditioned to believe that if we just find the right answer, the right path, or the right distraction, the discomfort will vanish, and we can finally go back to feeling normal again. But when we rush the process, we often miss the most vital lessons embedded in the discomfort itself. Sometimes, the most important, and perhaps the most courageous thing you can do is to simply stop running. Stop trying to find the next solution for just 1 hour. Stop looking for the exit sign. Sit with the frustration, the stinging uncertainty, or the quiet, persistent sadness. It feels counterintuitive, I know. We are taught that sitting with pain is the same thing as wallowing. But there is a profound difference. Wallowing is being consumed by the pain. Sitting with it is acknowledging it as a guest that has arrived to tell you something about your own heart. When you stop trying to push the discomfort away, you take away its power to chase you. You don't have to solve it today. You don't have to have a clear plan for how to move past this specific feeling. Sometimes, being kind to yourself means giving yourself permission to just feel the friction without judging yourself for the fact that life feels difficult right now. It is not a sign of weakness to admit that you are currently in a state of adjustment. In fact, it is a sign of immense maturity. When you allow yourself to stay in the discomfort, you are essentially telling yourself, I am big enough to hold this feeling. I am strong enough to be here, even when things are not okay. You start to realize that your identity isn't defined by the pain, but by your capacity to remain conscious and present while the world around you feels unsteady. If you are currently feeling that heavy weight of, I don't know what to do next, stay there for a little while. Take a deep, slow breath and notice where the tension sits in your body. Don't try to change it. Don't try to force a smile or a sense of optimism you don't actually feel. Just observe it. Say to yourself, this is uncomfortable, and that is okay. I am allowed to be in this transition. I am allowed to be human. By choosing to stay, you are reclaiming your agency. You are no longer a passenger to your own emotions, frantically trying to steer the car away from the storm. You are the one who is choosing to pull over, turn off the engine, and let the rain pass. This isn't about enjoying the pain. It is about respecting your own internal process enough to know that it needs time to work itself out. Growth is rarely a pleasant experience, and it often comes disguised as an ache. Give yourself permission to experience it fully, knowing that by simply remaining with it, you are slowly clearing the space for the next version of you to emerge. You don't need a map right now. You just need to be brave enough to sit in the quiet, hold your own hand, and wait for the fog to lift on its own terms. If we are being brutally honest with ourselves, the definition of success we have been carrying around is often borrowed from sources that don't actually care about our well-being. We have been taught to measure our worth by our output, our status, or our ability to handle adversity with a stoic, unmoving face that never shows a crack. We are told that if we aren't hitting the milestones, reaching the next level, or managing our challenges with perfect grace, then we are falling behind. But this version of success is a hollow one. It is a metric that ignores the internal landscape of your life, the effort required just to wake up, the bravery it takes to face a difficult day, and the quiet dignity of simply enduring. True resilience, and therefore true success, is not about being unbreakable. It is not about being like iron, which stays rigid until it finally snaps under too much pressure. It is about being like water, something that can bend, flow, and move around the obstacles in its path without losing its essence. Success is not defined by how little you hurt or how quickly you get back to normal. It is defined by how you put yourself back together when things fall apart. If you are currently in a season where your primary accomplishment is simply showing up for your own life, then that is a massive, life-altering success. If you managed to feed yourself today, if you reached out to a friend when you felt lonely, or if you simply chose to stay present when you wanted to disappear, you have succeeded. You have navigated the currents of your own experience with intention. Don't let anyone, least of all that critical, persistent voice in your own head, convince you that you should be operating at a higher intensity than your current capacity allows. Redefining success means moving the goalposts closer to where you actually stand. It means recognizing that on days when your energy is low, success looks like resting without feeling guilty. It means recognizing that on days when your heart is heavy, success looks like being honest with your feelings, rather than burying them under a veneer of forced productivity. You are allowed to move at a pace that honors your current mental and emotional state. In fact, if you don't honor that pace, you are simply borrowing energy from a future version of yourself that is already tired. Think about the way you would measure the success of a friend who is going through a hard time. You wouldn't demand they perform, produce, or win. you would celebrate their survival. You would be proud of them for taking a deep breath. You would be impressed by their ability to continue existing in the middle of a storm. Why is it so difficult to extend that same grace to yourself? Why is your success conditional on everything going right, while for others, you see that success is defined by how they hold on when everything goes wrong? Shift your definition. Let success be the commitment to your own wholeness. Let it be the gentle way you talk to yourself after a mistake. Let it be the quiet courage it takes to say, I am not okay right now, but I am still here, and I am still trying. That is not just a standard for recovery. It is a standard for a meaningful life. You are a human being, not a machine designed to run at maximum capacity until failure occurs. When you stop chasing the external, manufactured goals of success and start measuring your worth by the kindness, patience, and honesty you cultivate in the dark, you will find that you have been succeeding all along. You are not a project to be finished. You are a person to be cared for. That is the only success that truly matters in the end. There is a specific, heavy kind of exhaustion that comes from keeping your guard up all the time. When we are hurting, when we feel exposed or uncertain, our natural instinct is to build walls. We construct these emotional barriers, hoping to keep the world and its demands, its judgments, and its unpredictability at a safe distance. We hope that if we just don't let anyone in, or if we keep a mask of fine securely in place, we won't have to deal with any more pressure. We think of this as protection, a way to keep ourselves from breaking further. But in truth, these walls do more than keep the world out. They also keep us from the very things that might actually help us heal. When you spend your days behind a shield, you are spending a massive amount of energy just holding it up. Your muscles are always tense. Your attention is always split between the present moment and monitoring the perimeter. And your heart is constantly braced for impact. It is a lonely way to exist. It leaves you feeling isolated, even in a room full of people, because you have made the decision that to be known is to be vulnerable, and to be vulnerable is to be unsafe. But the irony of the shield is that it also blocks out the warmth, the perspective, and the simple relief of being understood. You cannot be truly seen if you are always hidden behind armor. Taking down the shield doesn't mean you have to suddenly become vulnerable to everyone you meet. You don't have to announce your struggle to the world, and you don't have to let people in who haven't earned your trust. Lowering the shield is an act of internal honesty first. It means being honest with yourself about your limitations. It is about admitting, I am struggling right now, and I can't keep pretending that I have everything under control. It is the moment you stop performing for others and start acknowledging the truth of your own experience. It takes an immense amount of strength to be vulnerable. It takes more courage to admit that you are human, that you have scars, and that you are currently navigating a difficult season than it does to maintain the illusion of being perfectly fine. When you choose to drop your guard, even just a little bit, even with just one trusted person, you give yourself the gift of relief. You allow the tension to leave your shoulders. You allow the space for genuine connection, which is often the missing ingredient in our recovery. We think we need to be strong to survive, but what we actually need is to be connected. Think about the times you've felt the most exhausted. Weren't those usually the times you were working the hardest to keep that shield locked firmly in place? It is a performance, and like all performances, it is draining. When you start to let that shield down, you might feel a rush of fear at first, a sense that you are suddenly exposed to the wind. That is a natural reaction. But stay with it. Notice that when you are honest, when you admit that you are struggling, the world doesn't end. In fact, you might be surprised to find that people are often waiting for that very permission to lower their own shields. You are not failing by being soft, by being honest, or by being in a state of repair. You are succeeding in being authentic. Vulnerability is the bridge between where you are and where you want to be. It is the raw material of healing. So, consider where you are still holding up a wall that no longer serves you. Ask yourself what you are really protecting, and whether the cost of that protection is higher than the relief you would find on the other side of it. You are brave enough to stand without the armor. You are brave enough to let the world see that you are still in the process of becoming, and that you are doing it with an open heart. Lowering the shield is not a sign of surrender. It is a declaration that you are ready to stop fighting yourself and ready to start truly living again. There is a profound, quiet tension in the middle ground, that vast, gray space between the ending of something you once knew and the beginning of something you cannot yet see. We often fear this space because it feels like a void. It feels like an unfinished sentence, a pause that has stretched on for far too long. When you are here, the old rules no longer apply, but the new ones haven't been written yet. It is a place of uncertainty, of transition, and of deep, sometimes uncomfortable introspection. Carl Jung once said, "One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." This isn't an invitation to dwell in despair or to focus only on what is wrong. Instead, it is a reminder that you cannot reach a place of clarity by pretending the difficult parts of your journey don't exist. You cannot skip the middle. You cannot fast forward through the parts that feel messy, raw, or unresolved. The middle is not a holding pattern. It is a laboratory. It is where you learn who you are when you aren't being defined by the roles you used to play or the successes you used to celebrate. When you are in the middle, it is easy to feel as though you are losing your identity. You might feel less like yourself than ever before, but that is actually a sign of growth. You are shedding the old layers, the ones that were formed in response to the world's expectations, and you are beginning to reveal a core that is entirely your own. Making the darkness conscious means having the courage to look at your fears, your grief, and your confusion, and to acknowledge them as part of your landscape. It means saying, "I am here in the middle of the mess, and I am not going to run away from it. This space is where you start to gain a different kind of authority over your life. When you refuse to fear the transition, you stop being a passenger to your own moods and circumstances. You stop looking for the nearest exit just because the scenery is currently unfamiliar. You start to see that you can carry the weight of your history, the lessons, the heartaches, the memories, without letting it dictate your destination. You are building a new internal architecture, one that is capable of supporting the person you are becoming. The middle can feel lonely because it is a place where you have to do a lot of internal work that others cannot see. You might feel like you're waiting for a sign or for the storm to break so you can finally step into the light. But the light you are waiting for isn't coming from outside of you. It is being generated from within, through the simple act of staying conscious of your own experience. It is found when you stop trying to rush toward a conclusion and instead commit to the process of being here, right now, in the middle of the growth. If you are currently feeling lost, remember that being lost is often a necessary part of finding a new path. You aren't meant to have all the answers in the middle. You are meant to be curious, to be patient, and to be gentle with yourself as you navigate these uncertain waters. You are in the process of transformation, and while the middle can feel long and demanding, it is also where the most meaningful work of your life is happening. You are carrying the weight of your own becoming, and that is a noble, quiet, and deeply human task. Trust that even when you cannot see the horizon, the path is unfolding beneath your feet. You are exactly where you need to be, and you have exactly what you need to make it through to the other side. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself throughout the day. It's easy to ignore, but the tone of your inner dialogue is the most influential relationship you will ever have. When you make a mistake, when you have a day where you feel stuck, or when you find yourself struggling to keep up, what is the first voice that speaks up? Is it a voice of empathy? Or is it a voice of judgment? For most of us, that voice has been honed over years to be a perfectionist, a critic, or a taskmaster, someone who demands more than we have to give and punishes us for being human. We have a tendency to be our own harshest critics, holding ourselves to standards we would never, in a million years, impose on a friend. If a person you loved came to you and said they were feeling overwhelmed, lost, or exhausted by the process of healing, would you tell them they were lazy? Would you tell them to stop feeling so sorry for themselves and just get on with it? You would probably hold space for them. You would listen. You would offer them patience and remind them that they are doing the best they can. Why then do you deny yourself that same basic, necessary kindness? Developing a new inner dialogue is not about forced, artificial positivity. It's not about telling yourself that everything is fine when it isn't, or pretending that you don't feel the weight of your current circumstances. It's about becoming a witness to your own experience and choosing to report on it with compassion. It is about catching that inner voice when it becomes judgmental and gently intervening, just as you would if you heard someone else being treated unkindly. When that familiar voice says, "Why can't I just be over this already?" try to catch it mid-sentence. Pause, take a breath, and shift the framing. Replace that judgment with something grounded and true. Say to yourself, "I am doing the best I can with what I have right now, and that is enough." Or try, "I am in a season of transition, and it is natural to feel tired. I am allowed to take this one step at a time." It feels strange at first, almost like you're trying to convince a stranger, but with practice, it becomes a habit that reshapes how you experience your life. The tone you take with yourself changes everything. When you speak to yourself with kindness, you reduce the internal friction. You stop wasting energy on self-attack, and you free up that energy to actually heal, to think clearly, and to show up for your own life. It is an active, daily practice. It means noticing when you are spiraling into self-blame and choosing to provide yourself with the same comfort you would offer someone you truly cherish. You deserve to be treated with as much grace as you give to others. You are navigating something difficult, and you are doing so without a map. Being your own ally doesn't mean you won't have hard days, but it does mean you won't have to face them alone. You will have yourself in your corner, offering steady, patient, and quiet encouragement. That shift in your internal language is the most powerful tool you have for mending a heart that is still in pieces. It is the beginning of a friendship with yourself that can last a lifetime, one that is rooted in truth, compassion, and the unwavering belief that you are worthy of your own care, especially when things are hard. Keep practicing it. Keep listening for that critical voice, and keep choosing, over and over again, to be the person who holds your own hand. No matter how far you feel you have drifted from your own sense of peace, the path to beginning again is never closed to you. We often make the mistake of thinking that beginning again requires a grand, sweeping gesture, a major life overhaul, a sudden change in environment, or a radical shift in identity. We wait for a clean slate, a Monday morning, or a new year to feel like we are finally allowed to start over. But the art of beginning again is not a grand, dramatic event. It is a quiet, rhythmic practice. It is found in the very next choice you make, in the next breath you take, and in the next moment you decide to lean into your own grace rather than your own criticism. You are still mending, and that is not just acceptable. It is an essential part of your human experience. There is no timeline for how long a heart takes to knit itself back together. There is no external schedule you are failing to meet. You are allowed to be in a state of repair for as long as you need to be. Think about it. When you break a bone, you don't demand that it heal in a single day. You give it time, you provide it with support, and you wait for the body's own wisdom to do the work. Why do we treat the heart, which carries so much more than the body, with less patience? Give yourself the gift of that time. Release the urge to rush. to force a sense of closure, or to arrive at a destination you haven't yet reached. You don't have to be perfect, and you certainly don't have to be finished. Beginning again is simply the act of recommitting to yourself in the face of what has been. It is waking up and deciding that even though yesterday was difficult, today is a fresh opportunity to be gentle. It is realizing that you don't need to be fixed to be worthy of your own care. You are enough exactly as you are, with your fatigue, your lingering questions, your fragile parts, and your quiet hopes. You are here, you are breathing, and you are trying. And that is a triumph that should never be underestimated. When you feel as though you have lost your way, remember that you are the architect of your own next step. You don't need a vision for the next 10 years. You only need a vision for the next 10 minutes. Can you be kind to yourself for the next 10 minutes? Can you choose to breathe deeply, to release the tension in your jaw, and to speak to yourself with the warmth you would offer a dear friend? That is the beginning. That is the art of starting over. It is a series of small, intentional, and tender decisions that slowly, almost imperceptibly, pull you back toward your own center. There is a profound beauty in the ability to start again. It means you are not defined by the past. It means that the hurt you have experienced, while significant, is not the final chapter of your story. It means you have the power to weave new threads of resilience and grace into the tapestry of your life, regardless of how frayed the older edges might seem. You are never stuck, and you are never beyond the reach of your own healing. Every moment is a doorway to a slightly different way of being, a slightly more compassionate way of living. Take a moment right now, just where you are, to acknowledge the courage it takes to keep showing up. It is not an easy thing to be human, especially when you are navigating a heart that is still in the process of mending. It requires immense, quiet bravery. And yet, you are doing it. You are holding your life in your hands, even when it feels like it might slip. That commitment to yourself, that choice to continue, is the most powerful thing you possess. Tomorrow is not a test to see if you have made it yet. Tomorrow is simply another opportunity to be a little bit gentler with yourself than you were today. It is another opportunity to listen to your needs, to honor your pace, and to trust that you are exactly where you need to be. You don't have to be a finished product. You are a work in progress, and there is such depth and dignity in that. You are not losing time. You are investing it in your own healing. You are not falling behind. You are moving at the exact speed required to carry your heart through this transition safely. So, rest when you need to rest. Weep when you need to weep. Ask for help when the load feels too heavy to carry alone. And above all, keep being kind to the person you are becoming. The world can wait. The expectations can wait. What matters most is that you treat yourself with the dignity and care that a heart in transition deserves. You are doing enough. You have done enough. And you are worthy of every bit of peace you can find. Begin again as many times as you need to, until the kindness you show yourself becomes the only way you know how to live. You are finding your way, one breath at a time, and that is a beautiful, unfolding victory. I know today's topic might have hit close to home. If you're willing to share, what is one small way you are being kinder to yourself during your own season of mending? Let's hold space for each other in the comments. You are doing enough. Take care of yourself today.